The black car stopped in front of the fancy restaurant. The car was so shiny that people could see their faces in it. The door opened and Marcus Wellington stepped out. He wore an expensive suit that cost more money than most people made in a year. His shoes were made of the finest leather. His watch was made of gold and diamonds. Marcus was 45 years old and very rich. He owned many companies that made computers and phones. People said he had more than $3 billion. He lived in a big house with 20 rooms. He had 5 cars, a boat, and even his own airplane. Marcus looked at the restaurant. It was called the Golden Spoon and only rich people ate there. The food was very expensive. One meal cost as much as some people spent on food for a whole month. Marcus liked this restaurant because poor people could not afford to eat there. As Marcus walked toward the restaurant door, he saw something that made him angry. A young girl was sitting on the ground near the entrance. She looked about 17 years old. Her clothes were old and dirty. Her hair was messy and had not been washed in many days. Her shoes had holes in them. She carried an old backpack that was torn in several places. The girl was sitting next to a beautiful piano. The restaurant had put the piano outside to make the place look fancy. It was a very expensive piano made by a company called Steinway. The piano was black and shiny, just like Marcus's car. Marcus stopped walking and stared at the girl. He felt disgusted. He did not like poor people. He thought they were lazy and dirty. He believed that if people were poor, it was their own fault. He had worked hard for his money, so he thought everyone else should work hard too. The girl did not see Marcus looking at her. She was looking at the piano with sad eyes. Her fingers were moving slightly, as if she was playing a piano that only she could see. She moved her fingers very carefully and gently. Sometimes she would close her eyes and her fingers would move faster. Marcus walked closer to the restaurant door. He wanted to get away from the girl as quickly as possible, but as he walked, he heard something strange. The girl was humming a song very quietly. The song was beautiful and sad at the same time. Marcus had heard this song before at concerts, but he could not remember its name. When Marcus reached the restaurant door, a woman in a fancy dress opened it for him. Her name was Lisa, and she worked at the restaurant. Her job was to greet customers and take them to their tables. "Good evening, Mr. Wellington," Lisa said with a big smile. "Your table is ready." Marcus pointed at the girl sitting by the piano. "What is that doing here?" he asked in an angry voice. Lisa looked where Marcus was pointing. "Oh, that girl has been sitting there for about an hour," she said. "We told her to leave, but she just sits there. She is not bothering anyone, so we decided to let her stay for a little while." "Not bothering anyone?" Marcus said loudly. "Look at her. She looks terrible. She smells bad. This is not the kind of place for people like her. My friends eat here. Important business people eat here. What will they think when they see her?" Lisa looked nervous. She did not want to make Marcus angry. Marcus was one of the restaurant's best customers. He spent a lot of money there every month. "I understand, Mr. Wellington," Lisa said. "We will ask her to leave right away." "Good," Marcus said. "I do not want to see her when I come out." Marcus walked into the restaurant. Inside, everything was beautiful and expensive. The walls were covered with gold decorations. The tables were made of the finest wood. The chairs were soft and comfortable. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling and made everything sparkle. Marcus sat at his favorite table by the window. From there, he could see the street and the piano where the girl was sitting. A waiter came to his table immediately. The waiter's name was James, and he had been working at the restaurant for 10 years. "What would you like to drink tonight, Mr. Wellington?" James asked. "Bring me the most expensive wine you have," Marcus said. He was still angry about the girl outside. James went to get the wine. Marcus looked out the window at the girl. She was still sitting by the piano. Her fingers were still moving like she was playing music. Marcus watched her for a few minutes. He noticed that her movements were very precise and careful. It looked like she really knew how to play piano. But Marcus did not care if she could play piano or not. He only cared that she looked poor and dirty. He thought she made the restaurant look bad. James came back with the wine. It was a bottle that cost $800. Marcus drank some wine and felt a little better. But every time he looked out the window, he saw the girl and got angry again. "This is ridiculous," Marcus said to himself. "Why is she still there?" Marcus called James over to his table. "I thought you were going to make that girl leave," he said. "We asked her to leave, sir," James said. But she said she was not doing anything wrong. She said she was just sitting on a public sidewalk. Public sidewalk or not, she is bad for business, Marcus said. I spend thousands of dollars here every month. That girl has probably never spent $1 here in her whole life. Marcus ate his dinner, but he could not enjoy it. Every few minutes he looked out the window at the girl. She never moved from her spot by the piano. Sometimes other people would walk by and look at her. Some people looked sorry for her. A few people even gave her money. This made Marcus even more angry. He thought the girl was just begging for money. He believed that giving money to poor people only made them lazy. He thought they should get jobs instead of asking for help. After Marcus finished eating, he paid his bill. The meal cost $300. Marcus left a big tip, because he always wanted the restaurant workers to treat him well. As Marcus walked toward the door, he stopped and looked out the window one more time. The girl was still there. She was still moving her fingers like she was playing piano. But now she was also looking at the real piano with very sad eyes. Marcus had an idea. It was not a nice idea, but it made him smile. He would teach this girl a lesson. He would show her that she did not belong in this nice part of the city. He would prove that poor people like her could never be as good as rich people like him. Marcus walked outside. The cool evening air hit his face. The street was busy with cars and people walking. The lights from the restaurant and other buildings made everything bright. Marcus looked at the girl. She looked up at him with tired eyes. She could see that he was rich and important. But she did not look afraid. She just looked sad and tired. Marcus smiled, but it was not a kind smile. He was about to change both of their lives forever, but he did not know it yet. Marcus walked straight to where the girl was sitting. His expensive shoes made clicking sounds on the sidewalk. The girl looked up at him but did not say anything. Her eyes were dark brown and very tired. She looked like she had not slept well in many days. "Excuse me," Marcus said in a loud voice. "You need to leave this place right now." The girl looked confused. "I am not doing anything wrong," she said quietly. "I am just sitting here." "Just sitting here?" Marcus said with a mean laugh. "You are making this place look bad. This is a nice restaurant for nice people. You do not belong here." Some people walking by stopped to watch what was happening. They could see that Marcus was rich and the girl was poor. They wondered what Marcus would do. The girl stood up slowly. She was smaller than Marcus had thought. She was very thin, like she had not eaten enough food for a long time. Her clothes were too big for her. The backpack she carried looked heavy. "I have nowhere else to go," the girl said. Her voice was soft and sad. "I am not asking anyone for money. I am not bothering anyone. I just like to sit here and listen to the sounds from inside the restaurant." "Listen to the sounds?" Marcus asked. "What sounds?" "Sometimes people play the piano inside," the girl said. "I can hear the music through the windows. It reminds me of—" She stopped talking and looked down at her feet. Marcus noticed that the girl's fingers were still moving slightly. She was doing the same thing she had been doing when he first saw her. Her fingers moved like she was playing a piano that was not there. "What are you doing with your hands?" Marcus asked. The girl looked at her hands and quickly stopped moving her fingers. "Nothing," she said. "It is just a habit." Marcus looked at the piano next to them. It was a beautiful instrument. The restaurant had put it outside to make the place look fancy, but they did not let people play it. It was just for decoration. "Do you think you can play piano?" Marcus asked with a mean smile. The girl looked at the piano and then back at Marcus. "I used to play," she said quietly. "Used to play?" Marcus laughed loudly. "I bet you never played piano in your whole life. Poor people like you do not know about music. Music is for educated people, rich people, not for people who live on the street." The girl's face showed hurt, but she did not say anything mean back to Marcus. She just stood there quietly. Marcus felt powerful. He liked making the girl feel bad. It made him feel better about himself. He thought he was teaching her an important lesson about knowing her place in the world. "Tell you what," Marcus said with an evil smile, "I will make you a deal. If you can play something good on this piano, I will buy you dinner inside this restaurant. I will buy you the most expensive meal they have." The girl looked surprised. She had not expected Marcus to offer her food. "But," Marcus continued, "when you fail to play anything good, you have to promise to leave this place and never come back. You have to promise to stay away from all the nice restaurants in this part of the city." Some people had gathered around to watch. They could hear what Marcus was saying. Some of them looked angry at Marcus for being so mean to the girl. Others were curious to see what would happen. "That is not fair," said a woman who was watching. "She is just a young girl. Leave her alone." Marcus turned to look at the woman. "This is none of your business," he said rudely. "I am trying to help this girl learn that she cannot just sit anywhere she wants." The woman shook her head and walked away. She did not want to argue with Marcus because he looked rich and powerful. Marcus turned back to the girl. "So what do you say? Do you want to try to win a free dinner? Or are you afraid because you know you cannot really play piano?" The girl looked at the piano for a long time. She seemed to be thinking very hard about something. Her eyes had a faraway look, like she was remembering something from long ago. "What kind of music do you want me to play?" she asked finally. Marcus was surprised that she agreed to try. He had expected her to walk away. Now he had to think of what to ask her to play. "Play anything you want," Marcus said. "But it has to be real music. Not just hitting keys randomly. It has to be something that sounds good." The girl nodded slowly. She walked closer to the piano. It was a beautiful black piano with white keys. The keys looked clean and perfect. The girl put her hand out and gently touched one of the keys. It made a clear, beautiful sound. Marcus crossed his arms and waited. He was sure the girl would embarrass herself. He thought she would hit a few keys and make terrible sounds. Then everyone would see that he was right about poor people not knowing about music. More people stopped to watch. Word was spreading that something interesting was happening. Some people took out their phones to record what might happen. The girl looked at all the people watching her. For a moment she looked scared. There were about 20 people standing around now. They were all waiting to see what she would do. "Go ahead," Marcus said impatiently. "We do not have all night. Play something or admit that you cannot and leave." The girl took a deep breath. She looked at the piano keys and then at Marcus. There was something different in her eyes now. The sadness was still there, but there was also something else. It looked like strength. "If I play well, you will really buy me dinner?" she asked. "Yes," Marcus said, "but you will not play well. You cannot play well. So start playing so we can get this over with." The girl sat down on the small bench in front of the piano. She adjusted her position and put her hands over the keys. Her hands were dirty, but her fingers were long and graceful. For a moment, everything was quiet. The people watching held their breath. Cars continued to drive by on the street, but the area around the piano was silent. The girl closed her eyes and seemed to be preparing herself for something important. Her fingers hovered over the keys like birds about to land. Marcus checked his expensive watch. He was getting impatient. He wanted to finish this silly game and go home to his big house. "Are you going to play or not?" Marcus asked loudly. The girl opened her eyes and looked at him. "Yes," she said quietly. "I am going to play." She put her fingers on the keys. Marcus smiled because he was sure she was about to embarrass herself in front of all these people. He thought this would be a good lesson for her about trying to be something she was not. The girl pressed the first key. The sound was clear and perfect. Then she pressed another key and another. The sounds were not random. They were the beginning of a song. Marcus's smile began to fade. The sounds coming from the piano were not what he had expected. They were beautiful. The girl continued to play. Her fingers moved across the keys with perfect control. Every note was exactly right. The music was complicated and beautiful. Marcus felt his heart start to beat faster. This was not supposed to happen. The girl was supposed to fail. She was supposed to prove that poor people could not do the same things that rich people could do. But as the music continued, Marcus realized that something was very wrong with his plan. The girl was not failing. She was playing better than most people Marcus had ever heard play piano. The crowd of people watching grew larger. The music was so beautiful that people could hear it from far away. They came to see who was making such wonderful sounds. Marcus stood frozen, watching the girl's fingers dance across the piano keys. His cruel challenge was about to backfire in a way he had never imagined. The music that came from the piano was like nothing Marcus had ever heard before. The girl's fingers moved across the keys like they were dancing. Each note was perfect and clear. The song she was playing was complicated and beautiful. Marcus recognized the music. It was a famous piece by a composer named Chopin. Marcus had heard this song at expensive concerts where tickets cost hundreds of dollars. Only the best piano players in the world could play this music properly. But here was this poor, dirty girl playing it perfectly. The crowd of people watching grew bigger and bigger. People walking down the street heard the music and came to see who was playing. Cars slowed down as drivers tried to look at what was happening. The girl played with her eyes closed most of the time. When she did open her eyes, she looked sad but peaceful. Her whole body moved with the music. It was like the piano and the girl were one thing, not two separate things. Marcus felt confused and angry. This was not supposed to happen. Poor people were not supposed to be able to do things like this. The girl was supposed to hit a few keys badly and then leave in shame. Instead, she was playing music that was more beautiful than anything Marcus had heard at the fancy concerts he attended. The music told a story without words. It spoke of sadness and hope and dreams and loss. As the girl played, Marcus noticed something strange happening to himself. The music was making him feel things he had not felt in many years. When he was a young boy, music used to make him feel happy and peaceful. But as he grew older and focused on making money, he had stopped listening to music for the joy of it. Now, hearing this girl play, Marcus remembered what it felt like to be moved by something beautiful. The music made him think of his mother, who had died when he was young. She used to play piano for him when he was a little boy. The girl played for almost 10 minutes. During that time, the crowd grew to more than 50 people. Everyone stood quietly and listened. Some people had tears in their eyes. Others recorded the music on their phones. When the girl finished playing, there was complete silence for a moment. Then everyone started clapping and cheering. The sound was so loud that people inside the restaurant came outside to see what was happening. The girl opened her eyes and looked around at all the people. She seemed surprised that so many people had gathered to listen. She stood up from the piano bench and stepped back from the piano. "That was incredible," shouted a man in the crowd. "Where did you learn to play like that?" asked a woman. "Are you a professional musician?" asked another person. The girl looked overwhelmed by all the attention. She was not used to having so many people looking at her and asking her questions. Marcus stood frozen in place. He could not believe what had just happened. The girl had not just played the piano well. She had played it better than most professional musicians. She had played it with the skill of someone who had studied music for many years. An older woman in the crowd suddenly gasped loudly. "Wait a minute," she said. "I know who you are." Everyone turned to look at the older woman. She was pointing at the girl with excitement. "You are Sarah Chen," the woman said. "I saw you play at Carnegie Hall 3 years ago. You were just a child then, but you were amazing. You played with the New York Symphony Orchestra." The crowd became very excited. Carnegie Hall was one of the most famous concert halls in the world. Only the best musicians ever got to play there. The girl, whose name was apparently Sarah, looked very uncomfortable. She did not want to talk about Carnegie Hall or the New York Symphony Orchestra. "That was a long time ago," Sarah said quietly. "I do not play in concerts anymore." "But why not?" the older woman asked. "You have so much talent. You could be one of the greatest piano players in the world." Sarah looked down at her dirty clothes and then at all the people staring at her. "Things changed," she said simply. Marcus finally found his voice. "You played at Carnegie Hall?" he asked in shock. Sarah looked at Marcus. She had almost forgotten about him and his cruel challenge. "Yes," she said. "I used to play in concerts, but not anymore." Marcus felt like the ground was moving under his feet. Carnegie Hall was where only the most talented musicians in the world got to play. Marcus had been to many concerts there. He knew that getting invited to play at Carnegie Hall was one of the highest honors a musician could receive, and he had just challenged a Carnegie Hall musician to prove she could play piano. "I do not understand," Marcus said. "If you played at Carnegie Hall, why are you—" He looked at her dirty clothes and did not finish his sentence. "Why am I homeless?" Sarah asked. "That is a long story." The crowd was still buzzing with excitement about Sarah's performance. People were taking pictures and asking for her autograph. Sarah looked uncomfortable with all the attention. Marcus remembered his promise. He had said that if Sarah could play piano well, he would buy her the most expensive dinner in the restaurant. She had not just played well, she had played incredibly. But Marcus felt embarrassed and confused. How could he have been so wrong about this girl? How could someone so talented end up living on the street? "You won," Marcus said quietly to Sarah. "I promised to buy you dinner if you could play well." "You played amazingly." Sarah looked at Marcus with surprise. She had not expected him to keep his promise. Many people had made promises to her over the years and then broken them. "You really want to buy me dinner?" Sarah asked. Marcus nodded, even though he felt very uncomfortable. "A promise is a promise," he said. The crowd started to break up as people realized the show was over. But many people came up to Sarah to tell her how much they had enjoyed her playing. Some people gave her money even though she had not asked for it. Sarah looked at the money people had given her. It was more money than she had seen in many weeks. But she looked sad rather than happy. "I just wanted to play music," she said to Marcus. "I was not trying to make money or prove anything. I just miss playing piano." Marcus felt a strange feeling in his chest. It might have been guilt, but he was not sure. He had not felt guilty about anything in many years. "How long has it been since you played piano?" Marcus asked. "This is the first time I have touched a real piano in over a year," Sarah said. "Sometimes I practice on tables or other flat surfaces, moving my fingers like I am playing. But it is not the same as a real piano." Marcus thought about his own house. He had a beautiful piano in his living room that cost more than most people made in a year, but he never played it. He had bought it only because it looked expensive and impressive. "Come on," Marcus said to Sarah. "Let us go inside and get you that dinner." Sarah looked nervous. "I do not think they will let me inside looking like this," she said. Marcus looked at Sarah's dirty clothes and messy hair. She was right. The restaurant would probably not let her inside, but Marcus was rich and powerful. The restaurant would do whatever he told them to do. "They will let you in," Marcus said. "Trust me." As they walked toward the restaurant door, Marcus felt like his whole world had been turned upside down. An hour ago, he had thought he knew everything about how the world worked. Rich people were better than poor people. Poor people were poor because they were lazy or stupid. But Sarah had just proven that everything Marcus believed was wrong. She was poor, but she was not lazy or stupid. She was incredibly talented and had achieved things that Marcus could never achieve. For the first time in many years, Marcus began to wonder if he had been wrong about other things too. Inside the restaurant, Marcus asked for a private table in the back corner. He did not want other customers to stare at Sarah because of her dirty clothes. The restaurant manager looked surprised when he saw Sarah, but he did not say anything because Marcus was an important customer. Sarah sat down carefully in the expensive chair. She had never been in such a fancy restaurant before, even when she was famous. Her family had not been rich, even though she was a talented musician. "Order anything you want," Marcus told Sarah. "Do not worry about the price." Sarah looked at the menu. The prices shocked her. One meal cost more money than she usually spent on food in a whole month. She had been hungry for many days, but she did not want to take advantage of Marcus's offer. "I will just have some soup and bread," Sarah said. "Soup and bread?" Marcus asked. "You can have anything on the menu. Steak, lobster, anything you want." Sarah shook her head. "Soup and bread is enough." "I do not want to waste your money." Marcus felt strange. Most people he knew always wanted the most expensive things. But Sarah, who clearly needed food, was asking for the cheapest thing on the menu. "When did you last eat a real meal?" Marcus asked. Sarah thought for a moment. 3 days ago, a kind woman at a coffee shop gave me a sandwich." Marcus felt his stomach turn. He could not imagine being hungry for 3 days. He ate expensive meals every day without thinking about it. "You are going to eat more than soup," Marcus said firmly. He called the waiter over and ordered several dishes for Sarah. He ordered steak, fish, vegetables, and bread. He also ordered juice and water. While they waited for the food, Marcus asked Sarah about her life. He was curious about how someone who had played at Carnegie Hall could end up homeless. "Tell me about your family," Marcus said. Sarah's eyes became sad. "My parents died 3 years ago," she said quietly. "They were driving home from one of my concerts when their car crashed. It was raining, and the road was slippery." Marcus felt uncomfortable. He had not expected such a sad story. "I am sorry," Marcus said. "That must have been very difficult." "My parents were everything to me," Sarah continued. "My mother taught me to play piano when I was very young. My father worked 2 jobs to pay for my music lessons. They were so proud when I got to play at Carnegie Hall." "What happened after they died?" Marcus asked gently. "I went to live with my uncle," Sarah said. "He was my father's brother. At first I thought everything would be okay. My uncle said he would take care of me and help me continue my music career." The food arrived and Sarah's eyes grew wide. There was so much food on the table. She had not seen this much food in many months. "Please eat," Marcus said. And continue your story. Sarah began to eat slowly. She was very hungry, but she tried to eat politely. Marcus noticed that she had good manners even though she was very hungry. My uncle seemed nice at first, Sarah said between bites, but after a few weeks things changed. I found out that my parents had left me some money when they died. It was not a lot of money, but it was enough to pay for my music lessons and help me go to college. What happened to the money? Marcus asked. My uncle took it, Sarah said sadly. He said he was keeping it safe for me until I was older. But then he started spending it on things for himself. He bought a new car and expensive clothes. When I asked him about the money, he got angry. Marcus felt angry too. He could not believe that someone would steal money from their own family, especially from a child who had just lost her parents. Did you try to get help? Marcus asked. I tried, Sarah said. But my uncle told everyone that I was lying. He said I was just a spoiled child who wanted money for expensive things. People believed him because he was an adult and I was just a teenager. Sarah continued eating while she talked. Marcus could see that she was still very hungry, even though she was eating slowly. My uncle also did not want me to continue playing piano, Sarah said. He said music was a waste of time. He said I needed to get a regular job and help pay for food and rent. But you were so talented, Marcus said. You could have had a great career in music. That is what I thought too, Sarah said. But my uncle sold my piano. He said we needed the money for other things. Without a piano to practice on, I started to lose my skills. Marcus felt shocked. He sold your piano? It was a good piano that my parents had saved money to buy for me, Sarah said. My uncle sold it for much less than it was worth. He spent the money the same day he sold it. Marcus thought about his own piano at home. It was much more expensive than Sarah's piano had been, but he never played it. Meanwhile, Sarah, who was incredibly talented, had no piano to play. What happened next? Marcus asked. Things got worse and worse, Sarah said. My uncle started drinking alcohol every day. When he drank, he became mean and sometimes violent. He blamed me for all his problems. He said that taking care of me was too expensive and too difficult. Sarah paused to drink some water. Marcus could see that talking about these memories was painful for her. On my 16th birthday, my uncle told me I had to leave, Sarah said. He said I was old enough to take care of myself. He gave me $20 and told me never to come back. $20? Marcus asked in shock. That was all? I tried to find help, Sarah said. I went to different government offices and asked for assistance. But there were so many forms to fill out and so many rules. I did not understand how everything worked. I was just a scared 16-year-old girl. Marcus had never thought about how difficult it would be for a young person to live alone without help. He had always had money and support from other people. Where did you live? Marcus asked. At first I slept in parks and bus stations, Sarah said. Sometimes I found shelters that would let me stay for a few nights. But many shelters were full or had rules that I could not follow. What kind of rules? Some shelters only let you stay if you had certain documents that I did not have, Sarah explained. Others had curfews that were difficult for me to follow because I was trying to find work during the day. Sarah finished eating the steak and started on the vegetables. Marcus noticed that she ate everything on her plate. She did not waste any food. How did you survive? Marcus asked. I did small jobs when I could find them, Sarah said. I cleaned buildings at night, washed dishes in restaurants, or helped people carry heavy things. But most places would not hire me because I did not have a permanent address or clean clothes. Marcus thought about all the employees who worked for his companies. They all had homes and regular salaries. He had never thought about how hard it would be to get a job without these basic things. Did you ever try to play music for money? Marcus asked. Sometimes I would find old pianos in public places and play for a few minutes, Sarah said. A few people would give me money, but security guards usually made me stop playing. They said I was bothering people. But you play so beautifully, Marcus said. How could anyone say you were bothering them? Sarah smiled sadly. When you look like me, people think you are trying to trick them or steal from them. They do not want to listen to you no matter how well you play. Marcus felt ashamed. He realized that he had thought the same thing about Sarah just 2 hours ago. He had judged her based on her appearance without knowing anything about her. That is why I was sitting by the piano outside your restaurant, Sarah said. I just wanted to be near a piano even if I could not play it. Sometimes I could hear music from inside the restaurant, and it reminded me of when I used to play in concerts. Marcus looked at Sarah with new eyes. She was not just a homeless girl. She was a person with dreams and talents and a tragic story. She had lost everything through no fault of her own. Marcus sat quietly for several minutes after Sarah finished her story. He felt many different emotions at the same time. He felt angry at Sarah's uncle for stealing from her. He felt sad about her parents dying so young. But most of all, he felt ashamed of himself. 2 hours ago, Marcus had looked at Sarah and decided she was worthless. He had thought she was lazy and probably dangerous. He had wanted her to go away so she would not bother him. Now he realized that Sarah was braver and stronger than he had ever been. "I owe you an apology," Marcus said finally. Sarah looked surprised. "An apology? For what?" "For the way I treated you," Marcus said. "I was cruel and unfair. I judged you without knowing anything about you." Sarah shrugged. "You are not the first person to treat me that way. When you look like I do, most people think bad things about you." "That does not make it right," Marcus said. "I was wrong and I am sorry." Marcus had not apologized to anyone in many years. He was used to other people apologizing to him. But sitting across from Sarah, he realized that he needed to change the way he thought about people. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Of course," Sarah replied. "How do you stay so positive? After everything that has happened to you, how do you keep going?" Sarah thought about the question for a moment. "Music," she said simply. "Even when I cannot play a real piano, I can still hear music in my head. I can still practice with my fingers on tables or walls. Music reminds me that there is still beauty in the world." Marcus thought about his own life. He had everything that money could buy, but he had not felt real joy in many years. He worked constantly to make more money, but he was never satisfied. He had forgotten what it felt like to find beauty in simple things. "Do you ever get angry?" Marcus asked. "At your uncle? At the people who do not help you? At the world for being unfair?" "Sometimes," Sarah admitted. "But being angry does not change anything. It just makes me feel worse. I try to focus on the good things instead." "What good things?" Marcus asked. He could not imagine what good things Sarah could find in her difficult life. "Well, tonight I got to play a beautiful piano," Sarah said with a small smile. "And I got to eat the best meal I have had in months. And I met someone who listened to my story." Marcus felt humbled by Sarah's attitude. She had found joy in small things that he took for granted every day. "Sarah," Marcus said slowly, "what if I told you that I want to help you?" Sarah looked suspicious.
"Help me how?"
"I do not know exactly," Marcus admitted. "But you should not be living on the street. You have too much talent to waste. There must be something I can do." "Why would you want to help me?" Sarah asked. "A few hours ago you wanted me to go away." Marcus thought about her question. Why did he want to help Sarah? Was it because she was talented? Was it because he felt guilty? Or was it something else? "Because it is the right thing to do," Marcus said finally. "And because I have spent too many years only thinking about myself." Sarah studied Marcus's face carefully. She had learned to be careful about trusting people. Too many people had promised to help her and then disappeared. "What kind of help are you talking about?" Sarah asked. "First, you need a safe place to stay," Marcus said. "And you need clean clothes and regular meals. Then we can think about getting you back to playing music professionally." "That sounds too good to be true," Sarah said. "People do not usually help strangers, especially strangers who look like me." Marcus understood why Sarah was suspicious. "You are right to be careful," he said. "But I am serious about helping you. I have more money than I can ever spend, and I want to use some of it to help you get your life back." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Marcus could see that she was thinking very hard about his offer. "Why should I trust you?" Sarah asked. "Because I am asking you to," Marcus said simply. "I know I have not given you any reason to trust me. I was horrible to you when we first met. But I want to make up for that." Marcus pulled out his wallet and took out a business card. "This has my phone number on it," he said, handing the card to Sarah. "Think about my offer tonight. If you decide you want my help, call me tomorrow." Sarah looked at the business card. It was made of thick, expensive paper with gold letters. It said, "Marcus Wellington, CEO, Wellington Technologies." "You own a technology company?" Sarah asked. "I own several companies," Marcus said. "I have been very lucky in business." Sarah put the card in her pocket. "What if I call you and you change your mind? What if you decide I am not worth helping?" Marcus could hear the fear in Sarah's voice. She had been disappointed by people before. "I will not change my mind," Marcus promised. "But even if you do not trust me yet, please take this." Marcus pulled several $100 bills out of his wallet and put them on the table. I cannot take your money, Sarah said quickly. It is not charity, Marcus said. Consider it payment for the concert you gave tonight. You played better than musicians who get paid thousands of dollars for one performance. Sarah looked at the money but did not touch it. That is too much money. Sarah, when I go to concerts at Carnegie Hall, I pay much more than this for tickets, Marcus said. You gave me a performance that was better than most concerts I have attended. Please take the money. Slowly, Sarah picked up the money. Marcus could see tears forming in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. There is one condition, Marcus said. You have to promise me that you will use some of this money to get a hotel room tonight. Do not sleep outside anymore, Sarah nodded. I promise. They sat quietly for a few more minutes. Marcus was thinking about everything Sarah had told him. Her story had changed the way he thought about homeless people. He realized that many of them probably had stories that were just as tragic and unfair as Sarah's. Marcus, Sarah said softly, can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you care so much about money? Sarah asked. You have more money than you could ever spend, but you still work all the time to make more. Why? Marcus had never really thought about this question before. I guess I thought that having more money would make me feel more successful, he said. Do you feel successful? Sarah asked. Marcus thought about his life. He had expensive cars, a big house, and more money than most people could imagine. But he was not happy. He had no close friends. He spent most of his time working and very little time enjoying life. No, Marcus admitted. I do not feel successful. I feel empty most of the time. I used to feel successful when I played piano, Sarah said. Not because it made me money, but because it made other people happy. When I saw people in the audience smiling or crying because of my music, I felt like I was doing something important. Marcus thought about the crowd of people who had gathered to listen to Sarah play earlier that evening. He had seen the joy on their faces. Sarah had given them something beautiful, something that money could not buy. I have not made anyone happy in a long time, Marcus realized. Maybe that could change, Sarah suggested gently. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Marcus felt different than he had when he arrived. Sarah's story had opened his eyes to a world of suffering that he had never bothered to notice before, but it had also shown him that one person could make a difference in another person's life. For the first time in years, Marcus felt like he had a purpose beyond making money. He wanted to help Sarah get her life back, and maybe in the process he could find meaning in his own life too. The next morning, Marcus woke up earlier than usual. He had not slept well because he could not stop thinking about Sarah. He kept wondering if she was safe and if she would call him. He also kept thinking about the beautiful music she had played and how wrong he had been about her. Marcus's house was very big and very quiet. He lived alone except for a housekeeper who came 3 times a week. The house had 20 rooms, but Marcus only used a few of them. Most of the rooms were empty and cold. As Marcus ate breakfast, he looked at the piano in his living room. It was a beautiful black piano, similar to the one Sarah had played the night before. Marcus had bought it 5 years ago because his interior designer said it would make the room look sophisticated, but Marcus had never learned to play it. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Marcus's phone rang. The number was not one he recognized. Hello? Marcus answered. Mr. Wellington? This is Sarah Chen. We met last night at the restaurant. Marcus felt relief wash over him. Sarah, I am so glad you called. Are you okay? Did you find a safe place to stay last night? Yes, Sarah said. I got a hotel room like you asked me to. It was the first time I had slept in a real bed in many months. Good, Marcus said. Have you thought about my offer to help you? There was a pause before Sarah answered. Yes, I have thought about it. I want to accept your help, but I have some questions first. What questions? Marcus asked. I want to know exactly what you expect from me, Sarah said. I do not want to owe you something that I cannot pay back. Marcus understood why Sarah was being careful. She had been taken advantage of before. I do not expect anything from you, Marcus said honestly. I just want to help you get back on your feet. I want to help you return to playing music professionally if that is what you want. But why? Sarah asked. You do not even know me. Marcus thought about how to answer this question. Because I can help and because it is the right thing to do. Also, because meeting you last night made me realize that I have been living my life in the wrong way. What do you mean? Sarah asked. I have spent years only caring about making money and buying expensive things, Marcus explained. But none of those things have made me happy. Last night, when I heard you play music, I remembered what it feels like to experience something truly beautiful. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Okay, she said finally. I will accept your help. But I want to work for it. I do not want charity. What kind of work? Marcus asked. I do not know yet, Sarah said. But there must be something I can do to earn the help you are giving me. Marcus smiled. Even though Sarah had nothing, she still had pride and dignity. We can figure that out later, Marcus said. Right now, let us focus on getting you what you need. Can you meet me this afternoon? Where? Sarah asked. Do you know where Wellington Technologies is located? Marcus asked. The big building downtown with the glass walls? Sarah asked. That is it, Marcus said. Meet me in the lobby at 2 o'clock. We will go shopping for clothes and other things you need. After Sarah hung up, Marcus called his assistant Jennifer. Jennifer had worked for Marcus for 8 years and was very good at organizing things. Jennifer, I need you to cancel all my meetings for the rest of the week, Marcus said. Cancel all your meetings? Jennifer asked in surprise. Marcus never canceled meetings. Are you sick? No, I am not sick, Marcus said. I have something more important to do. Jennifer was shocked. Marcus had never said anything was more important than work. What should I tell the people you were supposed to meet? Jennifer asked. Tell them we will reschedule next week, Marcus said. And Jennifer, I need you to make some phone calls for me. Marcus gave Jennifer a list of things to arrange. He wanted her to call expensive clothing stores and ask them to stay open late so Sarah could shop in private. He also wanted her to find the best music schools in the city and get information about their programs. At 2 o'clock, Marcus was waiting in the lobby of his building when Sarah arrived. She was wearing the same dirty clothes from the night before, but she had washed her face and tried to comb her hair. She looked nervous as she walked into the fancy building. Thank you for coming, Marcus said as he greeted her. This building is amazing, Sarah said, looking around at the marble floors and expensive artwork. Come on, Marcus said. Let us go shopping. Marcus had arranged for them to visit several high-end clothing stores. At each store, the employees treated Sarah with respect because Marcus was with her. Sarah tried on many different outfits, and Marcus bought her everything she needed. Clothes, shoes, a coat, and even a suitcase to carry everything. At first, Sarah protested that Marcus was spending too much money, but Marcus insisted that she needed good clothes if she was going to audition for music schools and orchestras. I cannot let you buy all this for me, Sarah said as they left the third store. Sarah, this money means nothing to me, Marcus said gently. I spend more than this on a single dinner sometimes. But for you, these clothes could change your life. Next, Marcus took Sarah to a hair salon. The stylists washed and cut her hair, and when they were finished, Sarah looked like a completely different person. She was beautiful and elegant, and she looked like the professional musician she used to be. Do you want to see yourself? Asked the hairstylist, holding up a mirror. Sarah looked at herself and started to cry. I look like myself again, she whispered. Marcus felt a strange emotion as he watched Sarah see herself in the mirror. He realized that he had never done anything that made someone this happy before. After the hair salon, Marcus took Sarah to a nice hotel. He had reserved a suite for her to stay in while they figured out a more permanent solution. This is too expensive, Sarah protested when she saw the fancy hotel room. It is temporary, Marcus said, just until we find you an apartment. An apartment? Sarah asked. I cannot afford an apartment. I will help you with the rent until you are earning money again, Marcus said. Sarah sat down on the bed and looked around the beautiful room. I do not understand why you are being so kind to me. Marcus sat down in a chair across from her. Can I tell you something about my life? He asked. Sarah nodded. I have more money than I can ever spend, Marcus began. I own several companies and I make millions of dollars every year. But I am not happy. I have no real friends. I have no family. I spend all my time working, but I do not know why. Marcus paused and looked out the window at the city below. Last night, when you played piano, I saw something I had forgotten existed, Marcus continued. I saw passion and beauty and talent. I saw someone who cared more about creating something beautiful than about making money. But you have accomplished so much, Sarah said. You built a successful business. I built a successful business, but I did not build a meaningful life, Marcus said. Helping you gives me a chance to do something that actually matters." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "What if I disappoint you?" she asked. "What if I am not as good at music as you think I am? What if I cannot get back to playing professionally? Then we will figure out something else," Marcus said simply. "But I do not think you will disappoint me. I heard you play last night. You have a gift that very few people have." Over the next few days, Marcus and Sarah spent a lot of time together. Marcus took her to see different music schools and helped her arrange auditions. He also took her to concerts so she could hear other musicians perform. As they spent time together, Marcus began to see the world differently. Sarah pointed out things that Marcus had never noticed before. She found beauty in small things like flowers growing in sidewalk cracks or children playing in parks. She was grateful for simple pleasures like a good meal or a comfortable bed. Sarah also helped Marcus understand how many homeless people there were in the city and how difficult their lives were. Before meeting Sarah, Marcus had ignored homeless people or assumed they were lazy. Now he realized that many of them had tragic stories and just needed help to get back on their feet. "Have you ever thought about helping other people like me?" Sarah asked one day as they walked past a homeless shelter. "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "You could use your money to help other homeless people," Sarah said. "Not everyone has musical talent like me, but everyone deserves a chance." Marcus had never thought about using his money to help large numbers of people. He had always focused on making more money for himself. "That is an interesting idea," Marcus said. "How would something like that work?" "I do not know exactly," Sarah admitted. "But maybe you could start a program that helps homeless people find jobs and places to live." As Marcus listened to Sarah's ideas, he began to think about using his wealth in a completely different way. For the first time in his life, he started to imagine using his money to solve problems instead of just buying things for himself. 6 months had passed since the night Marcus first met Sarah outside the restaurant. During that time, both of their lives had changed completely. Sarah had been accepted into 3 different music schools, but she chose to study with a private teacher who specialized in helping professional musicians return to their careers. She practiced piano for 6 to 8 hours every day in a music studio that Marcus rented for her. Marcus had also changed dramatically. He still ran his technology companies, but he spent much less time working and much more time on his new project, a foundation to help homeless people. Sarah had inspired him to use his money to help others, and he discovered that this work made him happier than making more money ever had. The foundation was called Second Chance, and it helped homeless people find jobs, housing, and support services. Marcus had hired a team of social workers and counselors to run the programs. In just 6 months, they had helped over 200 people get off the streets. But tonight was special for a different reason. Sarah was going to perform in her first public concert since her parents had died. Marcus had organized a charity concert to raise money for the Second Chance Foundation. The concert was being held at Lincoln Center, one of the most famous concert halls in New York City. Sarah was nervous as she prepared for the performance. She had not played in front of a large audience in 3 years. She worried that people would remember her tragic story and feel sorry for her instead of focusing on her music. "What if I make mistakes?" Sarah asked Marcus as they stood backstage before the concert. "You will not make mistakes," Marcus said confidently. "You have been practicing for months and you are better now than you ever were before." "But what if people are only here because they feel sorry for me?" Sarah asked. Marcus looked at Sarah seriously. "Sarah, people are here because you are an incredible musician. Yes, your story is inspiring, but your talent is what really matters. Tonight, just focus on the music." The concert hall was completely full. Over 2,000 people had bought tickets to hear Sarah play. Many of them were wealthy people who Marcus knew from business. But there were also many regular people who had heard about Sarah's story in the newspapers. Marcus had convinced the New York Philharmonic Orchestra to accompany Sarah for the evening. The conductor was a famous musician named Michael Rodriguez who had worked with many great piano players. As Sarah walked onto the stage, the audience became completely quiet. She wore a beautiful black dress that Marcus had bought for her, and her hair was styled elegantly. She looked confident and professional, not like the scared homeless girl Marcus had met 6 months ago. Sarah sat down at the piano bench and adjusted her position. The orchestra was arranged behind her, with dozens of musicians holding their instruments ready to play. The bright stage lights made the piano gleam like a jewel. For a moment, Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Marcus, who was sitting in the front row, felt nervous for her. He knew how much this performance meant to Sarah. It was her chance to prove that she could return to her career as a professional musician. Sarah put her hands on the piano keys and began to play. She had chosen to perform Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most difficult and beautiful pieces ever written for piano and orchestra. From the very first notes, it was clear that Sarah was playing at an extraordinary level. The music flowed from her fingers with perfect precision and deep emotion. The orchestra followed her lead, creating a wall of beautiful sound that filled the entire concert hall. As Sarah played, Marcus watched the faces of the people in the audience. Some people had tears in their eyes. Others sat with their mouths open in amazement. Everyone was completely focused on the music. The concerto told a story without words. It spoke of struggle and triumph, of sadness and hope, of dreams lost and found again. Sarah played each section with different emotions, taking the audience on a journey through her own experiences. During the slow, beautiful second movement, Marcus thought about everything that had happened over the past 6 months. He remembered the cruel way he had treated Sarah when they first met. He remembered how her music had opened his eyes to a different way of living. He thought about all the homeless people his foundation had helped, and how Sarah's story had inspired him to help them. The third movement of the concerto was fast and exciting. Sarah's fingers flew across the keys so quickly that they were almost a blur. The orchestra played with incredible energy, and the music built to a thrilling climax that made the audience want to cheer. When Sarah played the final notes of the concerto, there was a moment of complete silence in the concert hall. Then the entire audience exploded into applause. People jumped to their feet and clapped so loudly that the sound was almost deafening. Sarah stood up from the piano bench and bowed to the audience. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling. The conductor shook her hand and gestured for the orchestra to stand and bow as well. The applause continued for several minutes. People in the audience were shouting, "Bravo!" and some were throwing flowers onto the stage. Sarah had to bow several times before the applause finally began to quiet down. But the audience was not ready for the concert to end. They wanted Sarah to play more music. "Encore, encore," they chanted. Sarah looked out at the audience and then at Marcus in the front row. Marcus was clapping and smiling with pride. He nodded at Sarah, encouraging her to play something else. Sarah sat back down at the piano. This time she chose to play a piece by Chopin, the same composer whose music she had played on the night she first met Marcus. But instead of the complicated piece she had played that night, she chose a simple, beautiful waltz. As Sarah played the waltz, Marcus remembered that night 6 months ago when he had been so cruel to her. He remembered how wrong he had been about everything. Sarah's music had not only changed her life, but it had changed his life too. When Sarah finished the waltz, the audience applauded again, but more gently this time. The beautiful music had left everyone feeling peaceful and happy. After the concert, many people came backstage to congratulate Sarah. Music critics from major newspapers wanted to interview her. Representatives from record companies offered her contracts to make albums. Concert halls from around the world invited her to perform. But Sarah was most happy to see Marcus. She hugged him tightly and thanked him for all his help. "I could not have done this without you," Sarah said. "Yes, you could have," Marcus replied. "You always had this talent inside you. I just helped you find the opportunity to share it again." Later that evening, Marcus and Sarah went to a quiet restaurant to celebrate. It was not the same fancy restaurant where they had first eaten together, but a simple place that served good food without being expensive. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "You have so many opportunities. You could tour the world, make recordings, perform with the best orchestras." Sarah smiled. "I want to do all of those things," she said, "but I also want to do something else." "What?" Marcus asked. "I want to help other people like me," Sarah said. "I want to use my music to raise money for your foundation, and I want to teach music to homeless children." Marcus felt his heart fill with warmth. Even after achieving her dream of returning to professional music, Sarah was still thinking about helping others. "That is a wonderful idea," Marcus said. "We could create music programs as part of the foundation." "Exactly," Sarah said excitedly. "Music saved my life. Maybe it can save other people's lives too." As they talked about their plans, Marcus realized that this was the happiest he had ever been. For the first time in his life, he was using his wealth and influence to make the world a better place. And he had learned this lesson from a homeless girl who had nothing but still found ways to help others. The newspaper reviews of Sarah's concert were incredible. Critics called her performance extraordinary and unforgettable. One reviewer wrote that Sarah was a musician who plays not just with technical skill, but with a depth of emotion that comes from experiencing both great suffering and great joy. Within a week of the concert, Sarah had received offers to perform with orchestras in London, Paris, Tokyo, and many other cities around the world. Record companies offered her large contracts to make albums. Music schools invited her to teach master classes. But Sarah was careful about which opportunities she accepted. She wanted to build a career that would allow her to help other people, not just make herself famous. Marcus was proud of how thoughtfully Sarah approached her new success. She had not forgotten where she came from or how difficult life could be for people without advantages. 2 years had passed since Sarah's triumphant return to the concert stage. She was now one of the most respected piano players in the world. She had performed with famous orchestras in dozens of cities and had recorded 3 albums that had sold millions of copies. But Sarah had kept her promise to help other people. Half of her concert earnings went to Marcus's Second Chance Foundation, which had grown into one of the largest organizations helping homeless people in the country. Today was a very special day. Marcus had bought the restaurant where he and Sarah first met, and he was turning it into something completely different. The Golden Spoon was becoming the Second Chance Music Center, a place where homeless and struggling musicians could perform, practice, and find support. Sarah stood outside the building, looking at the same spot where she had sat 2 years ago as a homeless girl. The beautiful Steinway piano was still there, but now it had a sign next to it that read, "This piano is for everyone. Please play and share your music with the world." Marcus walked up beside Sarah. He looked very different than he had 2 years ago. He still wore nice clothes, but he looked relaxed and happy instead of stressed and angry. He spent most of his time working with the foundation now, and only a few hours a week on his business companies. "Are you ready for the opening ceremony?" Marcus asked Sarah. "I think so," Sarah said. "It feels strange to be back here." "Good strange or bad strange?" Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. "Good strange. 2 years ago, I was sitting right here with no hope and no future. Today, I am here to help other people find their hope." Inside the building, everything had been changed. Where there used to be expensive dining tables, there were now practice rooms with pianos and other instruments. Where there used to be a kitchen for expensive food, there was now a simple cafeteria that served free meals to anyone who needed them. The main dining room had been turned into a performance space where musicians could play for audiences. Tonight, 12 different musicians would perform, all of them people who had been homeless or were struggling to survive. Marcus had hired social workers and music teachers to work at the center. They helped musicians find places to live, apply for jobs, and develop their talents. The center also had a recording studio where musicians could make demos of their music. But the most important part of the center was the music school for children. Sarah had convinced Marcus to create a program that taught music to kids whose families could not afford lessons. Many of these children came from homeless families or families that did not have much money. Sarah taught at the music school 3 days a week. She worked with children from age 5 to 18, teaching them piano, but also teaching them about discipline, patience, and following their dreams. As the opening ceremony began, Sarah looked out at the audience. There were many important people there, mayors, business leaders, and famous musicians. But there were also many homeless people and families who would use the center's services. Marcus spoke first. He talked about how meeting Sarah had changed his understanding of what was truly valuable in life. He explained how the center would work and how it would help people. 2 years ago, I was a man who thought that money was the most important thing in the world, Marcus said. I thought that poor people deserved to be poor, and that rich people like me were better than everyone else. The audience listened carefully as Marcus told the story of how he had met Sarah. I was cruel to a young woman who was sitting outside my favorite restaurant, Marcus continued. I challenged her to play piano thinking she would fail and I could humiliate her. Instead, she played the most beautiful music I had ever heard. Marcus looked at Sarah, who was sitting in the front row. That young woman taught me that talent and worth have nothing to do with money, Marcus said. She taught me that every person has value, regardless of their circumstances. She taught me that the real purpose of wealth is to help others. When Marcus finished speaking, the audience applauded loudly. Then it was Sarah's turn to speak. Sarah walked to the microphone and looked out at the audience. She saw many faces that reminded her of her own face 2 years ago. Tired, hopeful, and uncertain about the future. When I was homeless, I thought my life was over. Sarah began. I thought I would never play music again. I thought no one would ever care about me or my dreams. Sarah's voice was strong and clear, but also gentle and warm. But one night, sitting outside this very building, I met a man who gave me a chance, Sarah continued. Not because I deserved it, but because he learned that every person deserves a chance. Sarah told the audience about her journey from homelessness back to professional music. She talked about the importance of never giving up on dreams even when things seemed impossible. This center is not just about music, Sarah said. It is about hope. It is about giving people the tools they need to rebuild their lives. It is about believing that everyone has something valuable to contribute to the world. When Sarah finished speaking, she sat down at the same Steinway piano where she had played 2 years ago. But this time she was not playing alone. 12 other musicians joined her on stage. A violinist who had been living in his car, a singer who had been staying in shelters, a guitarist who had been sleeping in parks, and many others. Together, they played a piece of music that Sarah had written specifically for this occasion. The music told the story of struggle and hope, of people falling down and getting back up, of communities coming together to help each other. As the music filled the room, Marcus watched the faces of the people in the audience. He saw the same expression he had seen on people's faces 2 years ago when Sarah first played. Wonder, joy, and inspiration. After the performance, the formal ceremony ended and the center opened its doors for the first time. People walked through the practice rooms, the cafeteria, and the performance space. Children tried out the instruments in the music school. Homeless individuals signed up for services and support. Marcus and Sarah walked through the center together, watching people explore their new opportunities. Do you remember what you said to me the night we met? Sarah asked Marcus. I said a lot of terrible things that night, Marcus replied. Which thing are you thinking of? You said that if I could not play piano, I could not have food, Sarah said. You thought you were being cruel, but you actually gave me the chance to change both of our lives. Marcus thought about this. I suppose that is true. If I had not been so arrogant that night, we might never have become friends. And none of this would exist, Sarah said, gesturing around the center. They stopped in front of a practice room where a 10-year-old girl was learning to play piano with one of the center's teachers. The girl's family had been homeless for 6 months, but now they had an apartment and the girl was learning music. She reminds me of myself when I was young, Sarah said softly. Maybe she will grow up to be a great musician like you. Marcus said, maybe, Sarah agreed. Or maybe she will become a doctor, or a teacher, or a business owner. The important thing is that she has choices now. Marcus nodded. He had learned that success was not just about what one person could achieve, but about how many other people you could help along the way. As the evening continued, Marcus found himself at the piano where everything had started. He sat down on the bench and slowly pressed a few keys. The sounds were simple and not very musical, but they were the first piano notes Marcus had ever played. Sarah walked over and sat down next to him on the bench. Would you like me to teach you to play? Sarah asked. I would like that very much, Marcus said. Sarah showed Marcus how to position his hands and how to press the keys gently. She taught him a simple melody that used only 5 notes. It took Marcus several tries to play it correctly, but when he finally did, he felt a joy that he had never experienced before. How does it feel? Sarah asked. Like I understand something I never understood before, Marcus said. As Marcus played his simple melody, people in the center gathered around to listen. They clapped and encouraged him, just as people had encouraged Sarah 2 years ago. Looking around the room, Marcus saw homeless individuals learning new skills, children discovering music for the first time, and volunteers helping people build better lives. He saw proof that when people help each other, everyone benefits. Sarah began to play along with Marcus's simple melody, adding beautiful harmonies that made his basic notes sound like part of a magnificent song. Together, they created music that was more beautiful than either could have made alone. This is how it should work, Sarah said as they played together. Everyone contributing what they can, everyone helping everyone else become better. Marcus continued to play his simple part while Sarah played the complex harmonies around it. He thought about how much his life had changed since that night 2 years ago. He had been wealthy then, but now he was truly rich. He had money, but more importantly, he had purpose, friendship, and the knowledge that his life was making a difference. As the music filled the room, Marcus realized that this was what happiness felt like. Not the temporary satisfaction of buying something expensive, but the deep contentment that came from using his gifts to help others succeed. The center stayed open late into the night, with people playing music, sharing stories, and planning their futures. Marcus and Sarah remained at